They said the 2026 midterms were months away. They said voters weren't paying attention yet. They were wrong. Tuesday night changed things. In two states, Texas and North Carolina, real voters walked into real polling stations and made real choices. And what they chose is sending a shockwave through every party headquarters, every campaign war room, and every political consultant's office in Washington right now. This wasn't a dress rehearsal. This was the first real test of where America stands after everything that has happened in the last few months. The war, the economy, the noise, the anger, all of it. And here's the thing nobody is saying out loud yet. What just happened in these two states may actually predict who controls Congress in November. So stay with me, because we're going to break all of it down today. The results, the surprises, the strategy, and the question that nobody on either side wants to answer. Who is actually winning America right now? Let's get into it. Let's set the stage. March 4th, 2026. Primary election day in two of the most important states in the country, Texas, the second largest state in America, 30 million people, a state that Republicans have won in every presidential election since 1980, but a state that Democrats have been knocking on the door of for years. It is not a red state anymore, not comfortably anyway. It is a competitive state, and every cycle that door gets a little more open. North Carolina, a true battleground. This state went for Obama in 2008, then flipped back. It went for Biden by the narrowest of margins in some polls before ultimately landing Republican at the presidential level. But at the Senate and gubernatorial level, it swings. It has always swung. Now here is why these two primaries matter so much. We are in a midterm year. And midterm elections are where presidents either get a mandate confirmed or get a wake-up call delivered. Right now, Republicans hold the Senate 53-47. Democrats hold the House by 8 seats. Both chambers are genuinely in play this November. And in 2026, the Senate map actually favors Democrats, meaning Democrats have a real shot at flipping the Senate if the right conditions hold. North Carolina is one of those seats. Senator Tom Tillis, a Republican, is not running again. That seat is open. An open seat in a purple state is as rare and valuable as it gets in American politics. Texas, Republicans feel safe there, but Democrats are hoping to run up the margins, grow the base, and plant seeds for a longer game. So Tuesday was the first move on the board, and both sides played it differently than expected. Let me walk you through exactly what happened. Let's take it from the top. 6 months ago, back in the fall of 2025, both parties started organizing for the 2026 primaries. Fundraising, candidate recruitment, strategy meetings. The machine was warming up. In North Carolina, the Democratic establishment quickly rallied around one name, former Governor Roy Cooper. Now, Cooper is not a rookie. He served 2 terms as governor of North Carolina. He actually won his race even in years when Republicans swept the state at other levels. He is known as a moderate, business-friendly Democrat who managed to win in a purple state without scaring off independent voters. That is not easy, and the National Democratic Party knows it. The Republican establishment in North Carolina, meanwhile, coalesced around Michael Whatley. Whatley is the chairman of the Republican National Committee. He is deeply connected to the National Party apparatus, to Donald Trump's inner circle, and to the donor networks that fund Republican campaigns across the country. So the general election matchup in North Carolina is set, Cooper versus Whatley. And that race, right there, is going to be one of the most watched Senate contests in America this November. Now let's go to Texas. The Texas Senate Democratic primary, that is a different story entirely. The key Texas Democratic Senate primary featured Representative Valerie Foushee against challenger Nida Allam. Both candidates ran hard progressive campaigns. Both pulled strong grassroots support. And on Tuesday night, the results were so close that we may be heading to a recount. That is remarkable. Texas Democratic primary voters essentially split right down the middle. And that is not a sign of a unified, energized opposition. That is a sign of an internal fight about what direction the Texas Democratic Party wants to go. Think about that for a second. You are a Democrat in Texas. Your job is to convince Republican-leaning independents to switch. And your primary is going to a recount because you cannot even decide who your own candidate should be. How does that look to the voters you need to win over? We will come back to that. Back to the timeline. Polls closed in North Carolina at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. By 10 p.m., Roy Cooper had a comfortable lead on the Democratic side. No surprise there. The party establishment had cleared the field for him months earlier. On the Republican side, Michael Whatley won decisively. His connections to the National Party machine and his access to major donor networks made him effectively unbeatable in a Republican primary in the current political environment. In Texas, polls closed at 7 p.m. Central, and they waited, and they counted. And they kept counting. By midnight, the margin between the two Democratic candidates was less than 1%. Networks refused to call it. By morning, it was still too close to call. The Republican primary in Texas, meanwhile, was not even competitive. The incumbent Republican candidate for Senate sailed through with ease, so Tuesday gave us clarity in one state and chaos in the other. That contrast, that is the story. It is exactly what tells you where each party actually stands right now. Okay, let's stop reading the scoreboard and start reading the game. What actually just happened here? First, let's talk about what Roy Cooper's clean win in North Carolina means. The Democratic Party, after years of internal warfare between progressives and moderates, made a deliberate choice in North Carolina. They cleared the lane for a centrist candidate, a former governor with a record of winning purple state voters. They essentially said, "We are not here to fight about the party's soul right now. We are here to win a Senate seat. And to win a Senate seat in North Carolina, you need Roy Cooper, not a firebrand progressive. That is strategic discipline. That is rare for the modern Democratic Party, which has spent the last several cycles tearing itself apart in primaries before facing Republicans in the general. But here is the question worth asking. Was that the right choice? Roy Cooper is electable. But is he inspiring enough to turn out the base when the base is exhausted and angry and burned out? Can a moderate Democrat motivate young voters, black voters in Charlotte and Raleigh and Durham, and the growing Latino communities in the state, while also keeping suburban independence on his side? That is the tightrope he has to walk, and it is a very narrow tightrope. Now let's talk about what is happening in Texas, and this is where it gets really interesting. The near-dead heat in the Democratic Senate primary is not just an inconvenience. It is a symptom of something deeper. The Texas Democratic Party is at war with itself about its own identity. There is one faction that says, to win in Texas, you have to be moderate. You have to talk to working-class voters in the suburbs of Houston and Dallas and San Antonio. You have to focus on the economy, on health care costs, on education. You cannot go hard left in a state like Texas. There is another faction that says, running moderate has not worked. Democrats have been running moderates in Texas for decades and losing. The only way to win is to build a new coalition, younger voters, Latino voters, progressive voters, and run with something bold. And neither side is completely wrong. That is what makes it so complicated. But here is the hidden story that very few commentators are talking about. This primary fight is happening right in the middle of the Iran war debate. Think about who controls what right now. Republicans control the Senate. Democrats need to flip it. And the biggest issue on every voter's mind in Texas right now is not domestic policy. It is not health care or immigration, though those matter too. It is the Iran war. It is the 4 American soldiers who came home in flag-draped coffins. It is the question of whether Congress has any real power to stop a president from taking the country to war without a vote. Democrats voted 47 to 53 to reject a war powers resolution in the Senate. Most of those 47 votes against were Democrats trying to rein in the president's war authority, and voters noticed. In Texas, in North Carolina, in every state with a competitive Senate race, the war is hanging over everything like a storm cloud. Candidates who can speak to that clearly and directly have an advantage. Candidates who fumble it, who seem unsure, who try to be all things to all people on a question as serious as war and peace, they will pay for it. Now, who benefits from Tuesday's results? Republicans go into November with structural advantages, safe incumbents in most states, a motivated base, control of the Senate, and in a midterm environment, the party out of power typically gains seats in Congress, meaning if voters are angry at the White House, that would benefit Republicans. But if voters are angry at the war that Republicans are supporting in lockstep, that calculation flips. Democrats have an opportunity, but only if they get organized, only if the internal fighting stops. And right now in Texas, that internal fight just got a lot messier. Let's talk about what people are actually saying. On X, formerly Twitter, Tuesday night was a battlefield. Conservative commentators were quick to claim victory. Texas is red forever. Roy Cooper can't win North Carolina without Biden on the ticket. Democrats picked another boring moderate. You've seen the takes. Progressive voices fired back. Cooper wins independence. That's the whole game in North Carolina. Texas primary being this close means the base is alive. Stop underestimating what's happening in the South. And then there was a third voice, the one that tends to be the loudest and the angriest, the exhausted middle, regular people, not political junkies. Not party operatives, just voters who are looking at their gas bills, their grocery receipts, their kids' college costs, and asking, why does none of this political machinery ever actually do anything for me? That voice is the most important voice in American politics right now, and it is the one both parties consistently fail to listen to. On television, the media narrative split almost immediately along predictable lines. Conservative media focused on Republican turnout numbers in Texas and North Carolina, which were strong. They framed it as a sign of an energized base heading into November. Liberal media focused on Roy Cooper's clean win and argued it shows Democratic strategic maturity, a party that has learned from its past mistakes and is focused on winning, not just making a statement. But here is the angle that most media completely missed. Turnout was lower than expected in several key counties in both states. In Bexar County, Texas, that is San Antonio, turnout in the Democratic primary was down about 11% from the 2022 midterm primary. In Wake County, North Carolina, that is Raleigh, Democratic turnout was roughly flat. Now that is not a disaster, but it is a yellow flag, a warning light. When your party is supposedly fired up and angry and ready to fight, and turnout is flat or dropping, that is telling you something. It is telling you that the anger has not yet converted into action. And action is the only thing that matters on election day. Let's zoom out. What does Tuesday mean for the national picture? The Senate map in 2026 is genuinely favorable to Democrats. Republicans are defending more seats. Several of those seats are in states that have been trending purple. North Carolina is the prize, but there are other states where the Iran war debate, the energy price spike, and economic anxiety are all playing simultaneously. If Democrats can hold discipline, if they can avoid the internal civil wars that have hurt them in past cycles, they have a real path to flipping the Senate. But flipping the Senate means winning the toss-up states. And winning toss-up states means convincing people who do not automatically vote for you. That is hard. That requires a candidate who can speak to real economic pain. That requires a message that is clear and simple and honest. North Carolina is now set up for exactly that kind of race. Cooper versus Whatley, a former governor against the chairman of the Republican National Committee. A race about competence versus ideology. About the economy versus the culture wars. About whether a swing state Democrat can still win in Trump's America. Nationally, this also matters for the House. Democrats need a net gain of 8 seats to take the House majority. That is doable, but only if there is a wave. And waves are built on enthusiasm. On the ground-level energy of volunteers and small donors and voters who feel like something real is at stake. Tuesday did not give us that wave. Not yet. What Tuesday gave us was a starting gun. The real question is, what happens between now and November? Does the Iran war drag on and make Republicans look reckless? Does the economy stabilize and help the party in power? Does a fresh scandal break? Does a candidate say something memorable for good or bad that changes the trajectory of a race? We do not know yet. Nobody does. What we know is that the first dominoes have fallen. The board is set. Let me give you 3 scenarios. The best case, the worst case, and the most realistic case. Best case for Democrats. Roy Cooper runs a disciplined, issues-focused campaign in North Carolina. He wins the Latino vote, holds the black vote in the urban counties, and peels off just enough suburban Republicans in Charlotte and the Raleigh-Durham metro to win. Democrats also resolve their Texas primary cleanly, one candidate, unified party, focused message. Energy prices bite Republican incumbents who supported the Iran war. The wave builds slowly, but it builds. Democrats flip the Senate 51-49 and cut into the House Republican majority. Worst case for Democrats, the Texas primary goes to a bitter runoff. The losing side is angry, stays home in November. Cooper loses North Carolina because the progressive base does not show up, and suburban Republicans decide the economy is okay and stick with the GOP. The Iran war ends quickly, the president gets a popularity bump, and Republicans ride that into the midterms. Senate stays Republican. House gets more Republican. November looks like a disaster. most realistic outcome, North Carolina is a genuine toss-up all the way to election night. Cooper versus Whatley is decided by somewhere between 30,000 and 80,000 votes in a state of 10 million people. Texas remains out of reach for Democrats at the Senate level, but Democratic turnout numbers in the suburbs of Houston and Dallas and Austin continue to grow and set the table for future cycles. The Senate flips or stays Republican by a single seat. The House race is equally close, and America wakes up on November 4th and does what America keeps doing, splits the difference, frustrates everyone, and leaves nothing truly resolved. What to watch between now and November? Watch the Texas runoff. If the two Democratic candidates take weeks to unify, that is a bad sign for party discipline nationwide. Watch Roy Cooper's fundraising numbers in the next quarter. If he raises $15 million or more, he is a real threat. If he raises $9 million, he is playing defense. Watch the Iran war. Every casualty, every drone strike, every congressional debate puts pressure on incumbents who voted yes on military action. That pressure does not go away, it compounds. And watch the economic data, gas prices, inflation numbers, jobs reports. Voters do not vote on ideology. They vote on whether their lives are getting better or worse. Here is where I leave you. We started this video by asking who is actually winning America right now. After everything we just walked through, the primary results, the internal party dynamics, the national stakes, the economic pressures, the shadow of a war that nobody voted on, here is my honest answer. Nobody is winning America right now. Both parties are fighting on multiple fronts. Both parties have internal fractures. Both parties have candidates who excite some voters and alienate others. Both parties have made promises they have not kept and taken positions that have cost them trust. And in the middle of all of that, between the spin and the strategy and the talking points and the fundraising emails, there are real people in Texas and North Carolina and every other state who just want the basics to work. Safe neighborhoods, affordable groceries, schools that prepare their kids, a foreign policy that does not send their sons and daughters home in caskets for reasons they do not fully understand. That is not a lot to ask, and yet. The 2026 midterms are not going to be won by the party with the best messaging. They are going to be won by the party that convinces just enough regular, tired, skeptical Americans that they are actually listening. Tuesday was round one, and if you're paying attention, and after watching this, you now know exactly what to look for in the rounds still to come. Drop your take in the comments. I want to know, do you think Roy Cooper can win North Carolina? Do you think the Texas Democratic Party is heading in the right direction? And most importantly, do you think either party has actually earned your trust right now? Be honest, because that is the only way these conversations go anywhere. I will see you in the next one.